Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap for the 7th of February. Hanging out on a Thursday, a little bit of selling here today. Nothing super dramatic, but definitely some selling. Stocks did rally fairly reasonably off of the intraday lows for the most part. Not a whole lot changed. A few things broke their nine. That short-term exponential moving average. Most areas were able to hold, as we will see. So howdy, Patricia. Great to see you. Great to see you guys as always. Hope you had a great day in and out of the market. Maybe hit a stop loss or two. I don't know. Maybe I did. I don't know. But definitely a little bit of selling here today. I don't think personally enough to generate bearish signals, but definitely more selling than we've been accustomed to as of late. No doubt about that. As we kind of look ahead to earnings for tomorrow, we've got not quite 20 S&P 500 companies. None of the huge companies. You've got an Expedia, a Western Union, a Phillips 66, just to name a few coming out with earnings. So, I mean, these are S&P 500 companies, so they're big companies, but they're not Googles and Facebooks and whatnot coming out here tomorrow or later today after the close. So, as we look at the day that was, gap down overnight. The whys, I don't know. They're headlines to me, at least as of right now. Regardless, price action, we did gap down, seeing some selling in the futures market. Tried to have a little bit of an early rally, but it just wasn't happening today. Whether it was reasons, we were tired of fighting at the 200. Folks were just looking for an excuse. We were hitting stop losses, whatever they may have been. Folks weren't ready to jump back in quite yet, early in the trading day. And we really were selling off pretty nicely going into about the time we were in the halftime report, kind of started to bottom out a little bit and creep up, closing pretty strong, certainly well off of the highs. And certainly it's going to be a red candle when we look at it on the daily chart. There is no doubt about that. But a little bit of a fight back, it's not, I don't think it's a sell signal just yet. And at least based off the second half of today's intraday action, seems like a lot of intraday traders didn't think so either. And great to see you, Javier. Hello, Marie. Always good to see you with us here in the recap live and in person. I hope you guys are all doing great. It's February. It's cold. I complained about the snow. Now I'm complaining about the wind. So it's not done being winter yet, unfortunately. As we look at the S&P, of course, as we know, we've been hanging out, kind of just hanging the last couple of days at that 200-day moving average. Seeing that move down today, we didn't even close below a short-term moving average, at least my short-term moving average, which I use the 9 exponential moving average, which is always, if you can't close below the 9, can't be that bearish, right? Now, we did breach it on the intraday. There is no doubt about that before rallying off of those lows. To me, until I start to see anything else develop, I'm going to treat this like a pullback opportunity. Personally, at least from a broad perspective, and that can change, right? But, right now we are still pretty much above everything, right? We haven't seen a day of selling, and so maybe it seems, what's this, right? We've had a pretty good run. So from a bullish point of view, but people do take profits. Stocks do pull back. And does this develop into something else? Well, we'll kind of see it together if it does. Right now, I don't think you can say that. Sure, we are seeing intraday sell signals a little more frequently than we were, even just yesterday, certainly over the course of the last week and a half or so. But I'm not going to base my, overall market posture on some intraday signals, bullish or bearish personally. But I will note, that we did, we are in that pullback phase, and whether it turns into something more, only time will tell. I need to see that next wave of buying opportunities, right? Let's make that support. Let's start that upward movement. Then we'll, if we fail and break support, then we'll know we've got some sell signals. If we rally and don't break support, well, we'll know the trend's intact, right? So not a whole lot to see here. A little more interesting than the last couple of days, though. Hey, Zach, how are you, my friend? Over in the NASDAQ, really very, very similar to the S&P 500. eerily similar, right? Hanging out right below the 200 the last 2 days, gap down on the open. We were down a little bit more in the NASDAQ today. That makes some sense. Some of those companies were more aggressive and some of them were up pretty high. A lot of those tech companies have had a really good week and a half. So again, closing above that 9 EMA, that's always the first sign. Again, I don't go bearish because we close below a 9 EMA, but I won't go bearish, at least in theory, until it happens. We can't break short-term moving averages. How bearish are we? So it'll be interesting to see. I wouldn't mind a little more of a pullback. Personally, it's never a bad thing, right? I love breakout trades and I'm okay with that too. And maybe we shoot right back up and take out that resistance here tomorrow or on early next week. That'd be okay with me as well. As we sit right now, really, I think I'm looking at 6,800 kind of as that first level of support that's going to line up with a little old resistance, nice round number, 20-period moving average. So that will kind of be, hey, if we pull back into that area, I'm really not concerned. I'll be looking at it as a buying opportunity if we do have that develop. And hey, Tanner, good to see you, my friend. I saw it was cold out in Colorado today. I saw your tweet early this morning, -8 degrees. So Rocky Mountain winters, right? Gotta love them. Over in the Dow, not a whole lot different. Of course, we've already proven that we were able to break that 200-day moving average, working down into the 200, bouncing off of that, using that as our kind of intraday catalyst, if you will, working our way back up, closing around that trend line here today as well. So again, if you think this is bearish, I can't, it's your decision to make. I can't make anybody's decisions for them, but I don't think you can call it that just after one day and the overall movement that we've seen. And lastly, over on the Russell, he doesn't want to get left out, pulling back here as well. Not even down 1% on the day. I heard on the radio the market's crashing. The Dow's down 200 points, and I'm thinking, wow, been a long time since you looked at the stock market. So definitely not that big of a deal. But again, it always starts somewhere, right? I don't think that's where it is. That doesn't mean I'm right. You can't go down until you start going down, though, right? So I will continue to watch these support levels, watch these shorter-term moving averages, how we respond. And like I said, until I see reasons to believe otherwise, overall, I'm looking at this as a bullish pullback opportunity. We will see where it takes us. As we look into our sectors, it was not a pretty day. The material sector is inching its way closer and closer to at least what I believe at that 52 marker is a pretty important level of support. That's our trend line. We've seen the price action there before. That's below basically everything, right? Below our short-term averages and the 50 if we were to break through that. I'm not loving it. We've talked a little bit about it before. I'm not bearish on it until support breaks because those are my rules. But it's making me wonder if it's going to want to test that 52 level of support. It's just not, even in a day, everything, kind of red today, right? We've seen this song and dance before. It just seemed like it just was a little redder. People were a little quicker to sell over in the material sector. I will continue to watch that 52. As far as new trading opportunities within this sector from a broad perspective, I'm kind of out a little bit until it works through this, what appears to be a little bit of a sideways developing range. Don't love that it's fallen below short-term averages. Don't think those are sell signals, but they do give me a little bit, I'm a wimp, so they do give me a little bit of cause for concern in the short term. Now, again, I need to break support before I say bearish is where I find myself. But I'm going to be taking a little bit more of a neutral type of approach. Let it play out. It's kind of gone into a soupy little mess right now. Break one way or the other. I still lean to the upside, of course, for whatever that means, right? It's easy to have an opinion when there's, what if you're wrong, right? But not loving the price action over there. Did work off of the lows. Don't love that we closed below our short-term averages. Don't like that 9 is starting to turn over. It's always easier, in my opinion, to be bullish if the 9 EMA is rising, bearish if it's falling. So it turning over, maybe just a sideways thing, but not the bullish signal that I would like to see over in that sector right now, at least. Energy, yeah, probably, definitely one of our worst performers here today. Whether it's, again, we know that 65, was a big deal. All right, we've seen its history. Hasn't done enough again to call it bearish. I do think it's done enough to say, well, let me just put it this way. Nothing's changed in my opinion. I'm still interested in a bullish breakout, but that's what it's got to be. I have no interest in a bullish pullback in the energy sector, right or wrong. If that's what we get in the days to come, it's going to be in another area for me. A break, short term, yeah, I would be very interested in energy breaking back above. But a pullback, this is just not going to be an area that I'm all that interested in. I think from a support level, probably that 62 mark is about where I will be looking as a short-term support zone. That's going to line us up at that 50-day moving average. That's going to line us up at this major turnaround point. We don't have a ton of history at this 62 mark, but the history that we do have was big. And so for a short-term support level, I'm going to be kind of looking at 62 / these lows that we put in while we were kind of dancing in that area, a month ago or thereabouts. For me, again, I understand that folks may want to play into the pullback, and they may be right to do so. But I do know for me, this is breakout or bust. So 65 continues to scare me. As I've said many times, it will continue to do so until it's gone. And no one will ever accuse me of being brave. Not about this stuff. So over in the financials, finally pushing, clearly below that 26 marker here today. We've danced around, knocked a little bit, above it, knocked a little bit below it for several weeks now. Even rallying today and closing not too far off of it. It appears to me that this does continue to be an area that's just causing us some struggles. And I think whereas maybe 2 weeks ago I was a little happier with the financial sector, much like energy, I still am very interested. I really am. I just think we need to take out this now before I get too interested. Now, a little bit of a deeper pullback into 25. We know there's a lot of history there. Could be some interesting pullbacks. That's projecting a little further down the road than maybe I'm comfortable doing, to pull back that far. I could see a scenario where the pullback would be appealing, but it's going to need to be a reasonable pullback. If we establish support tomorrow, there's just not room. And I think we have enough evidence now as we look at the stocks within the sector, as we look at the ETF, that overhead, even though sometimes it's not a huge level of resistance, is just causing it an issue, at least right now. Love the break, could be interested in a pullback, but I'm not going to, a shallow pullback, probably not. A shallow tech pullback, I could be interested in, for better or worse. Shallow financial pullback, I don't think that's where I will be looking. Industrials, yeah, they can pull back shallowly, and I'm okay with that as well. Closing, certainly they're getting in on the action, certainly down on the day. A lot of nice movement off of that intraday low here, not even testing those short-term averages. For me, nothing has changed. Still a very solid area that I'm very interested in going into the days to come. Would I like a pullback? Yeah, I would. I would not mind it pulling back one bit. Hey, Andy, good to see you, my friend. It held up better than most things today because it's just got a lot of relative strength right now. It's not like it's just the recap gang that have been enjoying the industrial sector, right? There's only so much we can do to move a sector, right? We're not very noticeable in the grand scheme of things. Very strong day here today. Like to see a little more pullback. And I hope that's the way that this market goes. I know it might scare some traders, and maybe some traders are bearish. Maybe they're going to be right. But I think a little bit of a pullback developing into, early mid next week would be almost the perfect way to play out the technicals right now. And so we will see if we get that. Industrials definitely holding up strong here today. Yeah, down on the day, but relatively speaking, held up better than pretty much everything. Of course, not the utility sector, who, of course, on a day like today, had a little juice and broke out of as we will soon see. Over in tech, again, had some room, has had a nice run. Not a surprise. There was some profit taking going on over here. Again, much like industrials, didn't even test short-term moving averages. So again, for me, pullback opportunity. Things that are breaking, yeah, it's always relative, right? You have to, you're probably not trading literally everything that you see. So things that are showing relative strength are going to be the areas that at least I am going to be most interested in, probably for next week. I don't really see a lot of great bullish opportunities unless they're breakouts potentially tomorrow. The pullback's just not going to be done tomorrow. in my opinion. And if it is, the signals are just going to happen too quickly for my tastes. I will continue to expect the upward movement. Over here, I'll expect these averages to keep creeping up. And that's kind of what I'm going to expect, in a lot of these areas, is those averages, that 20 to keep creeping up, and that zone be kind of that area that's tempting for the buyers. Staples, well, they were able to hang around today, right? Another, relatively speaking, held up pretty good today, closing technically in the red, but really, a good solid movement over in the sector here today. We're still using that same little intraday resistance zone that we've now spent over a week kind of bumping our head on. Breaking through that would be another signal, but as you guys know, for me, it's not a overall, broadly speaking, signal I'm all that interested in, because 54 continues to be where I'm watching for resistance. The signals are still there. No sell signals developing over here. Just that resistance zone, at least potential resistance zone, I guess I should say, at that old trend line. That will kind of keep me out. Maybe if we sell off, that'll be the catalyst to push some of these more defensive stocks through that. And hey, maybe we'll really enjoy them when that happens, or at least maybe I will. But right now, not a lot has changed. I do find it really interesting that we are developing a little bit of a sideways, ceiling and over the last week or so within the sector. If there's a little more room, I would love this setup. If I didn't feel that 54 is an area that, right or wrong, scares me from a bullish perspective, I would really like the setup for an eventual break to the upside. But such is life, right? You may or may not agree with that, but again, that's okay. That's okay either way. Utilities, it took a little while, and it took a little bit of selling in the market maybe, but the reasons are the reasons, right? We can talk all day about what they might have been. The reality is price action. Price is king, as they say. Breaking cleanly above that old 55 zone, breaking cleanly above that downward trend line. We've, again, very similar situation to what we are seeing right now in the staples, where we've kind of developed that same high, that same intraday resistance zone, taking it out here today. Now we know that this is an area from a defensive point of view that is very, it's not uncommon for this area to go up and the market's going down, right? That's the utility sector for us. Obviously, it's not 100% that it does that, but history suggests that these more defensive areas are where the money's going to go on days like today. That is a break. I certainly would have no objection to looking at the utilities as a bullish opportunity now. I was concerned at 55, and I'm okay with that. That I was, but I think now we've cleanly closed above it. Again, like we've talked about so many times before, that follow through is always what's going to matter to me, right? So many times this close, that's what I want to see first. How do we start tomorrow? Are we able to build off of that momentum, or is it open up below today's high and then do this, right? We saw this break. I remember looking at this break with our recap game, and no follow through the next day. We saw this break, no follow through the next day. This break, tried to follow through, but still lost by the end of the day. It wasn't until here that we actually saw some follow through. So that follow through is always something I want. You're right, though, Ilka. It is a clean break. There is no two ways about it. My opinions, aside, that is a nice clean break. It was a little choppy back here. Those of you who are following these sectors will remember. Last fall it was a little choppy. We could easily stick our nose. We weren't really at a nice round number. It was just that 55 zone. So I do think follow through is, always important. But I think for me, it's going to be even more important on these guys because of that recent history of trying to break and constantly failing for quite some time. But gotta love that candle. I mean, that's a lot of momentum. All the signals are still to the bullish side. Above 55 right now, I do think is you look at this bullish, whether we're talking about getting in tomorrow or just looking within this area and for next week, probably more something I'd be interested in as opposed to new entries tomorrow, at least. But that's just me. Above 55, I do think we can look at the sector from a bullish point of view right now. Really not a lot. I mean, much like, so many things we looked at before, there's not a lot of resistance. This is kind of has been a big deal. 56 we'll want to keep an eye on. That was a little bit of a breakout point in days gone by, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot. And that wasn't a major level of resistance, at least in my opinion. A lot of these utility stocks have already broken out, like AES. that recently broke out, but they're certainly not alone. There is room to the upside, in my opinion, in this sector. So I never really like to like utilities. It's just not my personal style, but it's one day. I'm not ready to crown him king just yet, but I really do like the development. I really do like the space, the room to potentially run over in this sector right now. So let's see how we respond tomorrow. I'm in no rush. Utility stocks usually don't move super fast, right? They can, of course, everything can do just about anything, but I don't feel like if I don't make my call tonight, I'm going to miss the entire hypothetical run up to 57. Nah, it's not going to be like that. At least I don't think so. And if it is, oh, well, good for anybody who bought it. So as we move into the healthcare sector, more downward movement, not really enough to change things technically. Still, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I don't think there's really clarity from, great earnings or poor earnings within this sector. And then that's okay. That's okay. I would love, as someone who does like the healthcare sector, I would love them to have had great earnings across the board. I didn't get that, but I don't think they were terrible across the board. Very mixed bag. And it just seems like that's how it's going to end with the healthcare sector. Right now, again, one of those areas, I think the breakout for me is a lot better trade setup than the pullback, but that's based off of today's candle. A couple more red candles working back into these, into this 89 mark where we've seen that history before. A little bit of slowing momentum, maybe selling tomorrow, doji on Monday, upward movement on Tuesday. I could be very interested in a pullback. So today, yeah, it's kind of like financials. I wouldn't be interested in, pullback, a shallower pullback. But if I get a little bit of a deeper pullback, and really as long as we're above this swing low right back here, I think I will be looking at it from a bullish point of view. I may get caution, a little more cautious if we falter below 89 and we see those short-term averages turn over. I definitely will get more cautious. But from a technical point of view, this is the pivot point. This is the higher low. And for me, as long as it is above here overall, I will be looking at it through more of a bullish lens. Really do think a break could be a nice trading opportunity within this sector. Maybe a pullback will develop, though. Again, maybe you don't want it in the healthcare sector, but it never hurts. As I've said many times, it never hurts to ask what you'd like, right? I would like a pullback, into 25 and a quarter on the financial sector and see a doji and some upward movement. Yeah, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't, but what does it hurt to ask, right? Over in financial, we do know we've got a lot of history at that 89 marker, so that's definitely a price I'll be keeping an eye on if and when we work into that price zone. Of course, in a day of selling, no doubt, discretionary is going down as well. Held up okay. Did a very nice job coming off of those intraday lows. As you can see here, let's actually go in and peek at that 15-minute chart here today. We almost were able to make it up, right? Working into that gap by the end of the day. So we really did have some pretty good movement off of those intraday lows over in this sector. Again, an area that for the most part, I do continue to like from a bullish perspective. Most areas, I am still finding myself more bullish than not. Certain areas, energy and communication services as a group at least, are areas that I find myself a little more bearish on, at least looking that way. Right now, over in the discretionary, downward movement off of that resistance. Again, I don't see a scenario where, broadly speaking, there's great entries tomorrow. Probably going to need at least one more candle for the type of entries I like, at least. It doesn't mean I'm right, but that is kind of what I don't expect jumping in a whole bunch of new bullish trades tomorrow. Something were to break a major level of resistance, I'm always open to that. But that's kind of what it's going to take tomorrow. Right now, I think tomorrow's more, for the most part, a planning day. See where we end by the end of the day. If we continue to see downward movement, if we do take out any support levels, think about hedging going into the weekend right now. And discretionary really pretty much sums up that whole thought process pretty nicely. Now, I don't expect that they're going to work and break, enough to give me strong sell signals tomorrow, but you never know. I do think we want to continue to watch this resistance. It has developed to be a little bit of a big deal, maybe a little bit of a bigger deal than I originally thought it was going to be. That's okay. Do think that's an area that we can watch, which can, of course, be a potential profit zone if we do get a pullback opportunity that we like, or a potential entry point if we do break through it. So I do think that we've seen enough price action. We've seen 3 candlesticks on that intraday in just over a week now. We've seen that downward movement. It's basically in a little bit of a range on top of a range, right? If you think about it, we kind of had that little miniature range back here, and now we're right back into another little miniature range right here. So right now, we'll see where it goes. I like the break better than I like the pullback again today, but it's not done anything wrong. And that's what I always ask myself from a technical perspective on days where, I'm more bullish. I'm sure many of you guys are more bullish than bearish on the market with the behavior that it's had. Did it do anything wrong? Right? Because nobody likes to see things move against them, so I don't think anybody ever will. But did it do anything technically wrong? And today, I don't think it did. Over in real estate, continues to go back and forth. Nice day here today, up nearly 1% on a day where there was quite a bit of selling. Don't think it cleanly broke. We're kind of right back to where we were a couple days ago, Ilka, where we were kind of having the same, confirmation discussion. Nice, it did break, but no follow through, right? Didn't even try. We're going to get another shot tomorrow. We'll see where it goes going into tomorrow. I think the big thing to take out of real estate as opposed to should I move into it tomorrow or not, we probably already have an idea if we're interested in that, is there's been ample opportunity to take profits, and really it's just not happening. Yeah, we've seen it together, right? We've seen some back and forth. We've seen some pretty reasonable days back and forth, but we know we're at this historic level of resistance, and still it doesn't have to dip too far before the buyers start moving back into it. So I still really have to appreciate the strength of this sector, even though it really hasn't made a lot of headway in the last 5 or 6 trading days. It's really fought hard at resistance, very extended by anybody's eyes, right? I mean, basically a complete V-shaped recovery in the real estate sector. Definitely an interesting area. Not a lot has changed. We got that 34.50 and then that 35 beyond it. So, I could understand if we get that follow through, this being an area that's got some more room to run. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it kind of looks like it did yesterday, where it might need to take a little bit of time. Neither would surprise me, right? It's very strong, so no one really has to convince me why they want to buy it, but it's very overextended. We all kind of want to pull back, I think. So no one has to, explain to me why they wouldn't want to buy it if it did break resistance tomorrow. So it'll be fun. Again, it's been a very strong area. I do think for the most part, regardless of where we find ourselves going into tomorrow, I think it's probably a good idea to have a few real estate stocks in your watch list going into the rest of February. How do you not want to be following things with that strength, I guess? And communication services. This ETF is just not my thing. It's individual companies in this area I'm fine with. But I mean, you've got Facebooks and Googles and terrible gaming companies, or at least gaming companies that are performing terrible, maybe a better way to put it. And this is, very back and forthy on the ETF because of that. I think it's fine to like Facebook, but not like EA, and whereas utilities, I mean, I'm usually either liking them or not. Real estate, it's usually either moving up, down, or sideways, as a unit, basically. Yeah, there's always somebody who's, doing the opposite of everybody else. But for the most part, go look at, 20 real estate stocks over the last 2 months, and you'll probably see most of them had a rough December and a great January. Some better than others, but they really move in pretty tightly together. That real estate ETF and so many of the other ETFs, I think, are great reflections of that individual sector. I don't know that the communication services sector even makes any sense. You've got AT&Ts and you've got Blizzards and you've got Facebooks, Charters. I mean, I guess I thought it when they first this came out a few months ago that this became an official sector. Thought it then, and with the way it's moving, I don't even know how useful it is to be honest with you as a tracking device. Here today at least, I don't really feel like it's a great tracking device at all. My opinion notwithstanding, though, nothing happened. Nothing happened here today. Downward movement. These stocks, the one thing I do think we can say is, as a general rule, the stocks in this sector can move. These guys are not utility stocks, not real estate stocks that typically don't have big ATRs. Stocks in here, whether it's a video game stock or a Google, I mean, they can definitely move. So no surprise, we did see some pretty big movement over here today, working right back into that 920 area. Yeah, we closed below the 9. But again, is that enough for a bearish signal? Not in my opinion, at least. closing right kind of in that bullish area. At least some people consider, the short-term averages a bullish zone, nicely coming off of the intraday lows, just like the discretionary sector really bounced off of those intraday lows today, getting a lot of today's loss back. Little upward movement. I could see someone liking this ETF chart, but to be quite honest with you, that someone's probably almost never going to be me. This will be something I continue to track because maybe I'm just, mad at video game stocks. You guys know that I like my video games, and I've been disappointed in them lately, and now I'm disappointed in the video game stocks to boot. So maybe it's just that, I don't know. But right now, this ETF is probably not something realistically I would work with because I don't feel like it's makes a lot of sense. And again, I could be dead wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, won't be the last time. If I'm looking at stocks within this area, I'm going to be judging them a lot more, based off of what are they doing with their own video game stocks. Okay, they're kind of all kind of ugly, hanging out at some support or just below it. That's how I'm going to approach this sector going forward until it proves to me it's a little less Facebook and a little more rational. So technically, though, not a lot here has changed. We can kind of watch this short-term trend line, which is going to put us right below these moving averages. Again, just a doji on a day of selling. I don't really think, broadly speaking, there's anything to see here. I'm questioning the value of this sector's ETF, but technically, I don't think anything has changed over here as well. So, really, for the most part, I think the only thing that's really, really changed here today is, what kind of trade you're looking for. If you're a little more on the conservative side, looking for things, let's get some upward movement, or if we're looking bullish, I guess I should say, let's get some movement. Let's find things breaking resistance. If you're a little more aggressive, you're probably open and excited about some of these pullbacks. And it's perfectly fine to be somewhere in the middle, which is probably where I would consider myself. If we are looking at things from a bearish perspective, I think in this type of condition, we are going against the trend, but it's fine if I think that this is the top. I don't really think that, but so what if I do? Right? I'm not going to go against the technicals, but I can go look to find things that are being pushed down by, trend lines or bumped into moving averages or broken support levels that they have established over the last month or so. So I can understand looking for bearish trades within this market as long as we continue to sell to the downside as well. So not a lot, but definitely some movement. And of course, on the day of selling, nobody's going to be surprised that we did see some movement to the upside over in the volatility index, typically how it goes, right? This was our first ugly day, if you want to call it that. We remember what December looked like. How ugly was today, really, right? But in comparison to what we've been dealing with, lately, it was kind of as ugly as it's been, all year long, really. So no surprise we see a little bit of an upward movement over in the volatility index. Over in our metals, we worked all the way. Did we get to 1305? I think we got to 1306 over in our I'm going to have to move this. I know you guys can't see it, but it's in my way. So yeah, 1306, all the way to 1306 over in gold today. We did see, some nice buying off of that low, looking like it's going to be a pullback opportunity. I don't think the confirmation is there just yet. Today is a good step. The price is about right, above 13, somewhere in that ballpark. 1306 was a great price, but I'm not going to be a ton of confirmation there, right? I wasn't jumping in at 1306, but a nice little upward move here today. Again, do we jump in based off of that? Well, that's going to be up to our rules. At the very least, I want to see it break to today's high tomorrow if I'm looking at this as a pullback opportunity. However you spin it, at least if you're me, anything I'm buying, potentially in gold, whether it's, the contracts outright or probably more likely the ETF to do some covered calls or something on. So the exit, the stop loss has to be below 13. I don't think it makes any sense to have a stop loss above that zone because that seems like the one that everybody's looking at. So as we're kind of thinking about risk to reward, that's at least how I'm going to be approaching it. The exit plan is going to have to be, it's probably going to be below that 20 on the gold contracts for me as well. But I do think it's got to be below 13 because it just doesn't make any sense to me technically that it wouldn't be there. I guess if that makes any sense. Anything to 13, I could understand someone buying. I really could. Silver, getting a little bit of a pop here today as well. I feel a lot better about silver today than I did yesterday. yesterday's candle, I mean, that's always going to be a candle that I'm always thinking you can't buy this tomorrow no matter what. So no matter what it is and when it happens and where else everything is on the chart. Little small body green candle developing here today. We don't have a lot. We do have a little bit of intraday stuff, but there isn't a lot of resistance, major resistance, until we approach that 16 mark. Of course, that is a big round number. And while we did take it out briefly, I think that's where I'm going to be looking at as that next number. Little upward movement, probably not tomorrow. I probably need to see a second day, which in this case would be Monday. But yesterday, I didn't think this was a pullback opportunity I would like very much. Today, I feel a little bit better about that. Again, I still need at least one more day. The nice thing about the metals markets is most of the time you get plenty of opportunities. You feel like you have to make a call today. A lot of times as traders, we feel that way, right? But a lot of times it works out that you didn't have to, jump in that quickly. You can let it develop the way that you want to. So yeah, I'm with you, Boost. I mean, overall, you make me do something today, I go buy silver. Even though the short-term price appreciation, I wouldn't be surprised if we do pull back a little bit further. So nobody's going to make me go buy silver today. I can wait for the signal that I like. But if I had to make a call, long or short rest of the year on silver, I'm with you 100%, Boost. I would go long if I had to. Now, I'll feel a lot better about saying that once we take out this level of resistance. So that will be something I'll be keeping a close eye on. But we might actually get that pullback opportunity in both gold and silver. Probably realistically, in my mind, if you're looking at a swing trade, you're probably looking, I'm probably looking at one or the other. Probably not going to go, tomorrow or Monday buy gold and buy silver, because odds are they're going to be really tied to one another, right? So I'm probably going to pick and choose, and I could see a case for either, at least as of today. A little upward movement, I think tomorrow is going to be something that I could get behind early next week. Wouldn't be opposed to a little more of a pullback. I want to like this pullback opportunity, whether it's in gold. Gold, I think, needs to be above 13 for me to like a pullback. And as long as that is, I'll probably like it a little bit more, just because it's such an easy number. We don't have quite that same overhead. Yeah, we have some recent swing highs, but we don't have this old floor. And this is an area that I think you have to contend with, and you have to respect it on silver. So I'll probably like gold a little bit more, but that can change, and certainly would if it were to break 13. As we kind of move over to natty gas, making sense. I mean, I've done nothing with it, and that's okay. But this is the first week in a while that I actually feel like natural gas made a lick of sense. We of course broke down on the open, breaking below that support. We spent the last 3 days building an intraday support zone, and then here today, cleanly taking that support zone out, working down into that 250 range. So while it's not there for a trading opportunity, I still think that this is something that I'm leaving alone until it simmers down. This is the first week in a while that I felt like I was right on how I thought natural gas was going to go from top to bottom. It gapped down and it broke below that. Not a lot of support to the 250 range. So maybe it's simmering down. So if you are in it, I think for me, from a bearish point of view, I don't see any reason why it's not going to 250. Doesn't mean it has to, but with certainly a lot of sell signals over there, not a lot of support until that 250 mark, which, as we know, there is a fair amount of support there. So we will want to keep an eye on that, no doubt. But interesting, one more day, and then one more weekend. Let's see how you open, right? And then lastly, over in crude continues to work itself down back within this trading range. Not a lot has changed in my opinion. I still really do like a break of 55, which I think I'm going to define as a break above this swing high. I know we technically took out 55 there briefly. For me, I think that's how I'm going to define the break of 55. Until I see that, probably not interested. Still, a break of 50, I think, is, now that we're working down, maybe this isn't, ready to break out to the upside, right? We're still in this range. And I think that's the way I'm going to keep looking at it. Do I lean more to break to the upside? If I had to guess today, yeah, I do, but that doesn't mean anything. I still think the break of 50 is also a selling opportunity. And I think anywhere in between is something that you're maybe playing on the intraday and I would understand that. But from a swing trading directional perspective, I don't understand trying to trade within this range. There's probably easier things, in my opinion, to trade than this trading range right now. Definitely some downward movement. Definitely. I know Coach Mark is not a fan of oil and energy right now, and I get his thesis. And well, hey, if he's right, is not breaking that resistance, right? And if he's right, it can still break that resistance and run up for 4 days and then run into that trend line. So, I always respect Mark's, opinions, because I know he really digs deep into fine things, and I'll just let the price action go, guide me from there. So an interesting day in the market, a lot of movers. Again, this is the first, real selling that we've seen in a bit. Definitely some movers on the earnings front. No doubt about that. We're still working through it. We're about out of earnings season, but we've still got some companies left to go. My advice is to really be thinking, some of these sectors you may agree with me on, some you probably don't, and that is perfectly fine. Be thinking, hey, are there areas that you are potentially bullish? What do you need to see? Same thing on the bullish side of things, wherever they may be, just to give you a better idea as you're looking through, especially over the weekend, for new trading opportunities, kind of, what kind of things you want to focus on. And I guess we'll see how much more selling we get tomorrow. Is this going to be a little more of a pullback? Is it going to be a mellow pullback? Or is everyone going to wake up tomorrow and say, oh my gosh, we sold, let's sell more? I guess we'll see. Which should be interesting one way or the other. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, it is my pleasure, and I do appreciate everybody's time. It's always great to see you guys. If you're new around here or catching the video later, be sure to head over to our channel and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can always be alerted to any new live streams or videos that we've got going on. And be sure to join us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter as well. If you enjoy the market recap, it is always helpful and appreciated if you give it a thumbs up. That is always helpful for us to know that we're on the right track, and helpful for Google as well as they try to figure out where to put us. If you are watching later in the afternoon, if you feel free to comment. We always like to read them. It's always helpful for the YouTube algorithm. So, and I always like to get other people's opinions. Right? It's trading can be a little bit of a collaborative thing, and I think that's a great thing about it. So don't be shy. Throw some comments in there if you have them. We're interested. Absolutely. With that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. You guys get out of here. Try to stay warm if you're in a cold country. So if you're not, we're all jealous, those of us who are still dealing with winter, but stay warm, I guess, for us. We'll pick up same time and channel here tomorrow to wrap the week up. So thanks a lot, guys. My pleasure as always. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, guys.